Hello and welcome. This is Dre from Better You, and today's episode is going to be breaking the debt spiral. Um, First off, I guess what we probably need to define is what is the debt spiral. To be quite succinct, the debt spiral is when a borrower finds himself in a situation where in order to meet their necessities, they have to borrow money. And that money comes at increasingly odious and pernicious terms. And over time, in order to keep meeting their responsibilities, they have to take on more and more debt. And eventually they reach a point where it crashes. And this basically is going to be when either default or bankruptcy is going to happen to a person. So, these quick disclaimer, I am not a fiduciary. I am not a financial advisor of any sort. I'm just merely a guy who's a life coach. I'm someone who can tell you from life experience about some of the bad decisions that they made with money and how they were able to clean it up. When it comes to breaking the debt spiral, first and foremost, what you have to do, you have to budget. You have to know where each and every single red cent of your money is going, because your money is the finite resource. And what you need to do is account for everything, not just your major bills like your rent, water, electric, in today's day and age, the internet, but even the small subscriptions that we may lose sight of, like say for instance that $9.99 for Tidal, or the $15 for Netflix or Hulu, or whatever it may be, because a lot of times we have money going some places that we don't even realize for things that we aren't even using. And we need to find places that we can cut to give us some breathing room in our budget. From there, what you need to do is lay out a plan to break out and attack and prioritize your debts. There's kind of two different ways you can go about it. One way is kind of, I've heard it referred to as the debt avalanche, where you focus on your biggest bill or biggest loan or whatever. And from there, you budget so that you can make the maximum payment possible for your budget for it, and still make the minimum payment for all your other obligations. And essentially what you'll see is, as you pay it down, and once that's paid off, the philosophy behind it is that it gets easier to knock out those smaller debts. Just for instance, like if you had, just say for instance, you had $1,500 to knock out for like bills like loans and credit cards every month, and you had a card that was $5,000, and all your other obligations to meet the minimum was $300. And just say for instance, like, oh, your biggest one is $5,000, the next biggest one is $2,500, after that $2,000, so on and so forth. It's going to take you a little while to knock out the big one, but as you knock out the big one, that cash is going to be freed up and essentially give you a little bit of more momentum to quickly pay off some of those debts as they get smaller and scaled down. The other way to go about it is called the snowball, and it's just the opposite philosophy. It's taking care of those low-hanging fruit, those smaller debts first, as you progressively move up to the bigger ones. And then from there, I would say call up your creditors and see if they're willing to renegotiate some terms for some of your debts. So, like, say for instance, your car loan may be able to give you some type of relief in the form of restructuring your payment, or maybe even moving a payment or two to the back of the loan. There's going to be advantages and disadvantages to it, because a lot of times what they can do is you're really just deferring debt, and if you just keep making the minimum, you're going to end up paying more in interest. So the important thing to keep in mind is that you want to be aggressive with taking that relief and applying it and being strategic with it. Because if you're going to, say for instance, get your payments restructured and it's only, the same things that you're going to do, and you end up blowing that extra money, now you're just further in the hole. Next thing, you have to be disciplined. It's one thing to get in a situation, and it's another thing to get out. Money is something that not a lot of people, frankly, have been taught how to handle and how to deal with. So you have to seek out, one, knowledge and people with fiscal discipline who can help you for your particular situation. It may be sitting down with somebody who is a fiduciary and laying out a plan on how you can do certain things. But the one thing I can guarantee you is, as long as you keep the mentality that you can't get out of debt, you can't get out of that spiral, it's always going to be the rat race. You always going to be in it, because the same decisions and rationale is going to keep being perpetually made, and you're going to constantly be fighting to keep the loop going and not let it crash. And then finally, and this one's kind of going to be a little bit of a video into itself, but improve your credit score. Credit is essentially the cost of money, the cost of borrowing money. And as your credit score increases, life gets cheaper. So bad credit makes life very expensive and locks you out of certain possibilities. If your credit score is trash, you're not going to get a home loan. If your credit score is trash, it's going to be so much harder to get an apartment. If your credit score is trash, that car is going to cost like 2 or 3 times what it would for somebody else. And it's one of those things where I know it can seem daunting at first, but honestly, with depending on your situation, you may be able to improve your credit score in as little as a few months to, if certain things aren't a possibility, to even like a year. You can be in a drastically better place. And that's not to say you're going to go from like a 400 to an 850, but if you're sitting at like a sub 600 score, like a 550, and you're able to get to like a 680, like life is going to be very different for you. And yeah, even that's not great, but that gives you a lot of relief. So kind of to recap a little bit, budget, account for all of your expenses, find places where you can cut, reach out to your creditors, see if they're willing to renegotiate or provide some relief for you. And then finally, improve your credit and be disciplined and work your plan. Come up with your plan, work your plan, stick to the plan, and keep the faith. It's going to be some times where it seems hard. It's going to be some times where it's like, it don't seem like it's worth it, but it most definitely is. Hope you have a great one. Hope I gave you something that can help you start improving, or something to meditate on. Thank you. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Dre, signing out.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me.